It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is What Made the Cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
And Doug Smith brings you this portion of the program, an incredible selection of Kia, Subaru, Chevy, Jeep, Dodge, or Ram. It is the Doug Smith family of dealerships in American Fork, Spanish Fork, and in Linden. You can go check out the newest line of Mitsubishis in the Doug Smith family of dealerships as well. As we start to get to know a little bit more about these opponents across all of college football, but specifically here locally, the Big 12 and who they're facing and going through another season of what is extremely difficult play. I don't care what you say about conference play and power conferences versus non-power conferences, but you and I went through one of BYU's old schedules, JJ, and went, can you believe that was the lineup that they had? I mean, God bless Tom Holmoe. He had to put all that stuff together during independence, and they had to cobble some stuff together.
Yeah.
But having a conference slate, it's difficult, but it's the only way you want it if you are trying to get to the college football playoff, because you want people to see what you're putting together. Joining us on the program right now, he is the play-by-play voice of the Iowa State Cyclones. They start the season off week 0 over in Ireland for Farmageddon, just like you had signed up, John. You would imagine when you got into this profession, of course, Iowa State and Kansas State are going to play each other in Ireland one day.
Yeah, I would have signed up for that for sure, and I'm thrilled that it's come to fruition. I'd never been there. It's going to be a really exciting trip. I think there's nervousness probably in both programs about the game itself, because you really do want to get off to that great start, especially with it being a conference game and a rivalry game, and two teams that are probably among the 5 or 6 that are most likely going to be in the race for that conference championship. And so although that's such a crapshoot, we learned that a year ago, but winner of this game is really going to have an upper hand, especially on the opponent they just played, but on the rest of the field too. So it's a really important game, and it's right out of the chute, and here we go. There's no easing into anything this season.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking from a Kansas State or from an Iowa State perspective, what are the pros and cons of playing such a massive conference game, a rivalry game, in week 0? What are those pros and cons in your mind?
I think the biggest pro is that Iowa State will get 3 bye weeks this year. And when you look at Iowa State a year ago and how dinged up they were throughout the season, I mean, they played 21 different guys started the game on defense. They had a million linebackers that had to play that, were guys off the scout team that you didn't expect to even have an opportunity. And all of a sudden they're out there starting college football games. So, trying to get healthy, I think probably one of the greatest assets in trying to stay healthy throughout a long season is bye weeks. It really allows the staff to allow a guy to take the time he needs to get healthiest possible, and to have, and they're broken up perfectly as far as I'm concerned, because you play 4 games, and then you have a bye week, and then you play 3 games, then you have another bye week, 3 games, you have another bye week, and then you close it out. It's like, man, that's perfect for trying to navigate a long, tough season. So I look at that as the pro. Obviously, the con is that if you look at the history of this game, the Aer Lingus Classic, most of the teams that have gone over there and played have not fared well the rest of the season. I mean, I think back to Nebraska facing Northwestern. Both teams went on to have an awful season. Florida State facing Georgia Tech. Neither team had a particularly good season, but especially Florida State was brutal after playing over in Ireland last year. Notre Dame was decent that year that they played over there against Navy, but really on the whole, it hasn't been a ticket to success for the rest of the season. So I think from the staff perspective, they're looking at this thing as, number one, how do we win the game? But number 2, how do we structure it and figure out the travel and figure out the sleep and the nutrition and try to get it so that it doesn't derail the rest of your season and get back into the best routine you can when you return. So I think as they're as worried about coming back as they are about anything. But they've really been studying this tremendously. They've talked to NFL teams. They've talked to other college coaches that have experienced this, and they're trying to figure out the best formula possible to handle the travel and the wear and tear on the bodies.
As you kind of get ready for, obviously these coaches, Matt Campbell has had, arguably the best success that any coach in the history of the program really has, but people look at him also as one of these guys who's young and has a lot of years ahead of him in really, really good coaching at the collegiate level. How committed is he to staying there at Ames for a long, long, long time?
Well, he just announced this weekend that he signed a 7-year contract extension. That's great news. I think one thing with Matt, he's going to make $5 million a year, which to me and you and everybody else that's normal in America, that sounds like a heck of a lot of money, right? But by taking $5 million a year, Matt Campbell basically puts himself as the 8th highest paid coach in the Big 12 Conference, which is fine. He's good with that. He took a pay reduction, or not a reduction, but he took less money to make sure that his staff got more money, and that also his players will get a better chunk of the the revenue sharing money going forward. He basically took a discount to make sure that those things happen for his program. If he feels like he has an opportunity to succeed, I don't see him going anywhere soon. I never say never, because you just don't know when that itch is going to come. But, people have been forecasting where Matt's going to go from the minute he arrived in Ames. Yeah. I mean, I can remember after year 2, everybody's like, okay, he's gone. Kirk Herbstreit said, after year 2 or 3, okay, enjoy this now, Cyclone fans, because it's over soon. And here he is going into year 10. And, he turned down USC, he turned down the Detroit Lions. He's turned down many opportunities. But one thing that people underestimate with Matt is the happiness of his family. And I think for a lot of our coaches, that is the key. It's easy to live a good lifestyle in Ames, raise a family there, good schools, good communities. And I think Matt, with 4 kids, really looks at it as, hey, my wife's happy, my family's happy, my kids love it here. Why would I want to uproot all that? And so, we're very blessed to have him at Iowa State. We don't ever take that for granted. We know how lucky we are to have him, and for him to do things like that with the financial part of it, not to hold Iowa State hostage, because he could ask for $9 million a year from some other place and get it. But he's trying to win and compete and do it in an effective way in Ames, Iowa, and it's really been a blessing for both sides that he's here.
Can you give us some historical perspective on how good Iowa State has been under his watch compared to the way it was before he got there?
Better than it's ever been, for sure. There's no question that he's the best coach in Iowa State history. And I think the biggest barometer is don't even look at overall records. Just look at within the Big 12 Conference, how you do against your peers. And he's got by far the best record of any coach that's coached at Iowa State. And there have been some good ones. I mean, Johnny Majors coached here. Earl Bruce coached here. Earl had some real success before he took the Ohio State job. And if you went way, way back, you could find some other coaches that had some success. Dan McCarney obviously took it from pretty much nothing and built it to the point where they went to 5 straight bowl games, and he was the winningest coach in Iowa State history until Matt Campbell came along. But really, there's no comparison. It's just Matt has elevated the program to a point where, and this was a huge hurdle for Iowa State fans and for the program in general, to just get to a point where you feel like every week you have a chance to win. And that is not a given. I mean, Iowa State fans have the scars. They know it's not always a given. You're going to be competitive. They've lost 77-10 to Nebraska. They've lost 70-7 to Baylor. Okay. And they remember those times. And so what Matt has done more than anything has gotten Iowa State to the point where if they play well, they're going to have a chance to beat anybody. And, I mean, at Oklahoma in 2017 with a backup quarterback that hadn't played at all, they go in there and win as 33-point underdog. That kind of made a statement that they're going to be there to play and compete. It's not that they're not beatable. They certainly are, but you're going to have to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves on a weekly basis. And so that was a huge hurdle to get to, and it really has made Iowa State football fun, because I think every single week you feel like, hey, they got a chance this week. And that's something that wasn't always a given.
Playing in the Big 8 in the time frame that they did, through the 30s all the way up until they got into the Big 12, that's a very difficult conference to play in during that stretch, because there were some of the best teams in all of college football as it was kind of getting into, what it was. But now when you look at it, they're close. What's the next thing to get them over the top to be able to get a conference championship? Because Iowa State's had some really good teams, and Matt Campbell's had some really good, successes, but they got to get over that hump. What does it take for them to be able to get to that Big 12 championship game and then win that thing?
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like in basketball, Kansas can claim, that they won 12 consecutive Big 12 championships or whatever, and they were regular season titles, and they can hang a banner for that. But in football, you can't do that.
Yeah, sure.
Well, Iowa State did have stood alone in first place in the Big 12 conference standings in 2020, but they weren't considered a champion. And then they lost to Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship game, and then they lost again to Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game this past year. Obviously, that's the next hurdle to get over that hump and win that Big 12 championship game. It takes a lot of luck and the ball bouncing your way and a lot of things to happen to get there to begin with. We all saw that a year ago. And, Iowa State went 5-1 in one-possession games last year. If you go back to the one poor year they've had since Matt kind of got it rolling at Iowa State, that was 2022. They were 4-8 overall. They were 1-6 that year in one-possession games. They had at one point had lost 12 of 13 one-possession games, which comes back to they're in every game. They have a chance to win every game, but they didn't get over that hump for a couple of years. And now it's gotten to the point with Rocco Becht in particular, who's a really clutch player, that they're able to win those close games in the end. And that 5-1 in those games a year ago is why they won 11 games, a school record 11 games. And, and we're back in the Big 12 championship game. So you're going to have the ball bounce your way a few times. You're going to have to go make your own luck, which is something that Rocco's really good at. But, it's health. There's so many things that are out of your control. And the luck of the draw, too. I mean, look at last year. BYU and Colorado could have just as easily been in the championship game as Iowa State and Arizona State. It was just the luck of the draw that those were the two schools that got in. So there's a little bit of that involved, especially in the Big 12 conference, where your guess is as good as mine who's going to win this thing.
Rocco Becht, you got to have a quarterback to win big and win championships, and you guys have one with Rocco Becht. But he's got Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel now in the NFL. How much of a concern is that the receiver position, and how much expectation is there that Rocco can get better this year, even though he's got to find some replacements for those guys?
Yeah, it's probably the number one question regarding Iowa State football going into the season. I mean, last year, Higgins and Noel combined for 68% of the receiving yards for Iowa State. And not just at the wide receiver position, just receiving yards, including the tight ends and the running backs. And so they were targeted a lot. They came through a lot, and they're two huge losses. They did bring in a couple of transfers that they're hoping can help to fill those shoes. Chase Sowell from East Carolina is kind of built like Higgins a little bit, and Xavier Townsend, who transferred in from Central Florida, is built more like Jalen Noel. They hope those two guys can step in and help them in those two spots, but they're probably not. I mean, no matter how good they are, there's going to be a drop-off. There's other receivers that have been in the program for a while. One that we really like from West Jordan, Utah, is Dominic Overby. He is terrific and lengthy and very athletic, and they're super excited about him. Brett Eskilson's another guy. He's from Frisco, Texas. Carson Brown's a returning guy. They've got some options there, but I think what you're really going to see with Iowa State offensively this year is them be a little bit more dependent on the run game and the tight ends. And they do have two really good running backs returning in Carson Hansen and Abu Sama. They've got excellent tight ends returning. Benjamin Bramer's finally healthy. He could be one of the best tight ends in the Big 12 Conference. Gabe Burkle really came on at the end of last year and had a great year. Cooper Alexander's a guy that's a redshirt freshman in the program, but they're very, very high on. So I think this could be the first year in the Matt Campbell era where the tight ends accumulate 100 catches. They've thrown it to the tight ends a lot. When you think back to Charlie Kohler and Chase Allen, the tight ends were a big part of those offenses. The high watermark is 96 receptions for the tight ends. I think this could be a year where you see that get up over 100. And then maybe you bring along those wide receivers a little bit more slowly and depend a little bit more, at least early in the season, on your running backs and your tight ends.
So Iowa State last year gets Utah here at Rice-Eccles Stadium this year. They face off against BYU, which a couple of years ago, obviously, it was a blowout at the hands of the Cyclones in Provo. This BYU team has changed quite a bit. What do you expect out of BYU this year? And what does Matt Campbell see in that Cougar team? I think that when we talked to him at Big 12 Media Days, he has a lot of respect for Kalani Sitake. I don't know a lot of guys who don't, but this BYU program was surprisingly improved last year, and I think a lot of people feel like they're poised for that again, even with the quarterback change.
Yeah, I think that's definitely throw Iowa State and Matt Campbell into that camp. He has an enormous amount of respect for Kalani Sitake. And I mean, I think if you asked him honestly off to the side to rank the coaches he has the most respect for, 1 through 15 of the other coaches in the Big 12, Kalani would be right at the top. He loves them. He thinks the world of them. He's just a genuinely great human being, too, and which Matt really respects. I think he feels like he's in it for the right reasons and cares about his players and just couldn't think any higher of him than he does. I don't know what he thinks of this particular BYU team. I haven't had a chance to ask him that question. I've looked at him and kind of studied him as I've done all of Iowa State's opponents. And obviously the quarterback situation is a very big deal. It is for any program, especially when you have the unexpected happen. I love the rest of the team. If they can find a quarterback that can be serviceable, I think they could be outstanding. I think the defense will, again, be among the Big 12's best. I'm super impressed with the linebackers. I think up front they've got some really good players. I think that could be a terrific group. And they were great last year, obviously. The offense, you might have to be a little bit more dependent on, like Iowa State, like I just talked about losing those wide receivers. You might not attack in the same way you did a year ago, but, I mean, when you have Chase Roberts and you have Carson Ryan and you have L.J. Martin and you've got Parker Kingston, you've got some weapons. You know, you've got some guys that can go make some plays down the field. And so I'll be real curious to see how it all plays out. But I think if they can get, you know, last year they averaged, about 31 a game. I mean, if they could average 29 a game with a different quarterback in there, I think that defense will still be strong enough that they'll be right in the race to compete for the Big 12 championship again. So they're a team that I think everybody around the conference is going to be really keeping an eye on, wondering how it's all going to play out with that change of quarterback. But when you surround him with the weapons he has, I think that'll help ease whoever it is, whether it's Hillstead or Bourget or whoever it is that earns that job, is going to have some weapons around him to work with.
Iowa State's among several teams we believe has a chance to win this conference this year. It's tough to beat the parity in this conference, 1 through 16. There are just so many good teams. But at the end of the day, there's not that national championship contender or that team or two like the old days with Oklahoma and Texas that used to run this league. How important do you think it would be for this league if they want to make inroads and make a run in a college football playoff to have those teams emerge?
You know, I don't know if it's as much that as just dominating as much as possible in the non-conference. You know, I think when we look at the Big 12 basketball conference and the way it's perceived, the reason it, I think, has gotten such a great reputation is because when they play out a conference, they win those games by, a pretty good majority. They'll always have the best non-conference record of any league, although the SEC emerged a year ago. But in basketball, you've seen the Big 12 year after year just go dominate non-conference play, so that by the time you get into league play and you're beating up on each other, it doesn't matter as much because your net rating is still so high based on what you've done in the non-conference. And I think that formula has to apply to football too. And there's not as many opportunities, and they're, you just have to make the most of them. Baylor has to beat Auburn. Iowa State has to beat Iowa. You know, when you get those chances to go make a statement win out of conference, I think that's the best formula for trying to get the league's reputation as a whole to come up. I love the balance in the league. You know, I love it. And to me, the bottom of the league should matter too. You know, I know that Ohio State is Ohio State and Alabama is Alabama, but other leagues brag about the top of their league, and they should, but they don't mention the bottom of their league, which is sometimes pretty bad. And I think in the Big 12, what you see is it's more bottomless. There's not a clear cut where these teams are just awful, and that you chalk up a win when you play those teams. And I think that should matter too. So I'm a little biased, obviously, but I think the biggest way to make a statement is to go win those non-conference games at a good volume. And then, over time, if a power or two emerges, I guess that's good for the conference. I love the parity. I do think Arizona State's going to be really, really good again this year. They have pretty much everybody other than Scadaboo back, and he was a dynamic player. But, they have including getting guys healthy like Jordan Tyson. I just think they're going to be really, really tough to beat. And those are back-to-back games for Iowa State. BYU homecoming on October 25th, and then Arizona State coming in the following week to Jack Trice Stadium. So you talk about, the importance of that Kansas State game early. That little stretch right there in late October, early November is going to go a long way to dictating what kind of a season Iowa State has. But I look around and I see a lot of teams that could be in contention. I sat there and went through every team that Iowa State's playing, and I mean, you look at some of the quarterbacks that are returning in this league, and you look at some of the skill guys that TCU has, and Daniels in Kansas, and what a good coach he is, and you could just keep going down the line. Baylor's got all kinds of guys back, and Utah should be right back in the thick of things, I think. And so I do think it's a league where you could pick 8, 9 teams that have a legitimate chance to win it again. And to me, I really enjoy that. I call it the don't put down the remote league, because when you turn on a Big 12 game, if you're just flipping around through the dial, all of a sudden you come across a Big 12 game, there's a pretty good chance it's a one-possession game and it's super competitive and fun to watch. And that's where you just put down the remote and say, okay, I'm going to settle in on this game. And so I love that about the Big 12 Conference.
We're excited about it. Yes, that stretch for Iowa State gets tough there, but also they start the season off on August 23rd. And then it doesn't stop, of course, all the way through.
Is that in 19 days?
That's
checks notes? Wow.
That's
yeah.
What's that travel schedule look like for you guys? Like, how early are they trying to get all the teams out there and you guys out there to make sure that everybody kind of gets, I don't know. I mean, I say acclimatized, but the reality is it's mostly just about getting everybody sort of in their normal body mode.
Right. It's going to be a challenge. We're going to leave on Wednesday evening, get in there Thursday morning. I'm sure the guys will nap when they get in. Practice probably that day. Play Saturday. It'll be 11 a.m. kick Central Time, but it'll be a night game over there. They are going to stay the night after the game on Saturday. I know there was probably some thought to just getting on the plane and coming back, because you do have another game the following Saturday. But because you're making up time when you come back that direction, I think that kind of weighed into their decision. So if they leave Dublin at 10 a.m., they probably get back here about 1 o'clock on Sunday and can get back into the routine as quickly as possible. But it'll be interesting. Never done it before, so they're going to find out if this works or not.
Well, we'll see. I'm always interested to see where they end up putting the radio guys too. They're like, "Oh yeah, you guys we'll stuff you over in this corner," or maybe it's maybe you're going to be highly publicized at the very front and center. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, presumably there's soccer pitches usually.
Yeah, one thing they told us about 2 days ago is, oh, by the way, you guys are not in a booth. You're out in the open. So if it starts raining, you hear some raindrops on our equipment. But
Love it.
so we're looking up some garbage bags or something to bring over there to try to protect our equipment. Not as worried about me, but the equipment can't go wrong.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we appreciate it. He's John Walters, play-by-play voice of Iowa State, the Cyclones. BYU, the only two of the big schools here in the state of the Big 12 who are going to be facing off against Iowa State this year. It's going to be at Jack Trice Stadium for homecoming on October 25th. John, we appreciate it. We'll chat with you when we get closer to that game.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me, guys.
There you
Appreciate
go.
it.
Yep, absolutely.